the spotlight.
Hi everyone. So thank you very much to the Ledger team for inviting me today to participate to this event. I'm really happy to be here. I hope you're fine and that you are not too hungry. So can you please move to the next slide? Yeah, thank you. So I'm Pablo, working at Consensus for 3.5 years now. And at Consensus, I've been issuing more than 50 million NFTs so far. And this is what we are going to talk about today. So actually, my NFT journey started before I joined Consensus 4 years ago. I was participating to a hackathon organized by Ubisoft and Dapper Labs in Paris 4 years ago. And with my team, we won the hackathons, and we got some very, very fancy and very cool CryptoKitties in reward. And unfortunately, I lost the private key of the wallet on which that I used to resave this CryptoKitty. So I'm really, really sad about this. And this is why today I will not only talk about the NFT market, but I will also talk about the NFT issuance and custody best practices. Thank you. So you all are very familiar with NFTs. So what are NFTs? NFTs are digital assets that are living on blockchain protocols. And because they are living on blockchain protocols, they are unique or rare, indivisible, non-fungible. And today, if we look at the NFT market, we can use a Manhattan model to categorize the different categories of NFTs. So we won't go deeper into details today. You are all very familiar with these NFTs, but we have digital collectibles, digital artwork. We have rights and royalties that are managed with NFTs, digital sport memorabilia, a lot of gaming assets and other virtual assets, and we also have digital representation of physical products. So yesterday, I was preparing this presentation, I was preparing this deck, and when I look at the NFT market, there are two KPIs that I like to analyze. The first one is a daily unique buyer, and the second one is a daily sales volume. And I wanted to compare these two KPIs with the activity 1 year ago. And what we see is that in 1 year, we have experienced a multiplier effect, which is totally crazy. So this multiplier effect cannot be compared with any other technology, industry, or market. So for example, if you look at the first one, the daily unique buyers, it has been multiplied by approximately 60. And if you look at the daily sales volume, it has been multiplied by approximately by 360 in 1 year. So this is probably why a lot of us are interested and are looking very closely at NFTs 1 year after. And when we start about NFTs, of course, there is an entry point which is quite important and relevant, and this entry point is the blockchain network, so basically where the NFTs are living. And today, if we look at the number, we observe that Ethereum, the Ethereum mainnet, is the main place for NFTs. More than 90% of the NFT volume is happening on Ethereum. So of course, there are other layers, other protocols that are very relevant for NFTs, but with NFT, of course, you have this idea of interoperability. So when you start your NFT journey, you need to think about how do you want to interoperate your NFT platform, your NFT game, your NFT collection, or whatever, with the rest of the NFT ecosystem. So this is a very strong consideration to have in mind. There are a lot of people who think that NFT are only speculative assets. So there is a ratio that I like to monitor. It's a buyer-seller ratio. And this ratio basically is increasing over time. So it proves that NFTs are moving from speculative assets to utility assets. And what is the utility for NFT? So, to my opinion, there is a very simple mental model that we can use to classify the utility for NFTs. Of course, the first category is collection items. So, for example, at Consensus, we have worked with Damien Hirst, a contemporary artist, to help him issue its currency collection, which is a very fancy NFT collection that has been issued last summer, and basically it's only digital art, okay? And there are a lot of other items that can be classified within this category. The second category is the game assets. So you are all, maybe the best example here is Axie Infinity. The idea here is to use the NFTs both as game assets, so virtual accessories that you are going to use as part of the game, but also as rewards. Okay, so when you win the game, you can collect specific NFTs as a reward. And NFTs, of course, are very popular for play-to-earn games. And the last category is virtual assets, so basically all the virtual accessories that you may reuse in some metaverses or in other contexts, other ecosystem. And here, for example, at Consensus, very recently we released Futura as part of the Eulerbits platform. So it's an NFT generative music platform on which you can go, you can purchase some MixPass, which are NFTs, and you can use this MixPass to participate to some music creation process, and at the end, you co-own the music files that has been created on the platform with other creators. So these are three categories. These are three categories of NFTs that are not speculative assets at all, but that are coming with a real utility. Today, the vast majority of NFTs are at the retail level. So we all heard every day about CryptoPunks, Bored Ape Yacht Clubs that are very expensive and not affordable for the mass market. But if you look at the number of NFT transactions over time, so of course the institutional market is increasing, but today, of course, there are plenty of NFT collections that are targeting the mass market, the retail market, and not only institutional actors. But however, we are seeing in 2021 the emergence of institutional stakeholders, both on the issuance part, but also on the service provider part. So you probably have heard about Visa purchasing a CryptoPunk a few months ago. And I am talking every day with Wells Bank, Assets Manager, Gallery Arts, who are also looking for institutional and enterprise-grade services in order to custody the NFTs, either for themselves or for their customers. So we are seeing this rise, this emergence of new institutional stakeholders in 2021, whereas 1 year ago or 2 years ago, no institutional stakeholder was in the NFT, was working on NFT. So now I shared with you the big picture of the NFT market and landscape. I want to provide you with some issuance and custody best practices based on the different NFTs projects on which I worked over the last 3 years. So here I identified 6 steps, six blocks or work streams that are critical when it comes to issuing NFTs. So they are not in sequence, but of course first there are the creator wallets. There is also the blockchain network. There are the metadata and media storage servers, the NFT standards, the NFT distribution mechanism, and at the end, the NFT's custody. And on all of these 6 critical steps, there are key considerations to have in mind when it comes to issue and launch NFTs. So, of course, for the creator wallet, the key consideration that you have to address, of course, is the ownership of the security of the NFT at the minting process, at the issuance process. You have also to consider how the creator will collect the payments that he will receive for the NFT he will sell later on its storefront or on the marketplaces. If you look at the blockchain networks, so the reason that why you are using NFTs is to enable interoperability between your platform, your game, your ecosystem, and the rest of the ecosystem. So you need to make sure that you are using the right network that will enable this interoperability. So for example, you want your NFT to be tradable on open marketplaces, you want the NFT be fractionable, for example, or collateralized using some DeFi protocols and so on. Another point, another important point regarding the blockchain network is, of course, the longevity, the immutability, and the integrity of your NFT. We are seeing some blockchain networks that are not really blockchain networks at all. They are centralized and controlled by one single organization. And so you are putting your NFT at risk if you are issuing these NFTs on this kind of blockchain networks. If we look at the metadata and media storage server, so basically these are the servers where you are going to register the digital files that are associated to your NFTs, but also the information that are describing your NFTs. And here you have the same challenges, immutability, integrity of the data. And if you are doing this on a centralized server controlled by one specific person or one specific entity, you are putting your NFT at risk again over time. Fourth step, or the fourth work stream is the NFT standard, of course. You need to use the right NFT standard in order to enable the interoperability, once again with the open marketplaces and with other platforms or use cases in DeFi. The next challenge is the NFT distribution. So on the user side, I don't know if you are familiar with NFT drop and if you have had bad experience as an NFT purchaser or NFT owner, but what you have to consider and what you have to think about is to guarantee the finality of the distribution of your NFTs to your end users. And also, you need to consider, of course, the issuance and distribution costs. And at the end of the journey, of course, we have the fans, we have the end users, we have the collectors, and you need to enable them to manage their NFT in a flexible way and in a secured way. So today, if you look at the solutions that creators or organizations have in order to issue NFT, you can see that there are approximately 3 main options. Okay? So either you do it manually from scratch, or you can reuse open marketplaces. You are all familiar with these well-known marketplaces, or you can build or use a white label NFT platform. So you may encounter some challenges or face some risk if you are doing it manually. So the first challenge, of course, will be to find and to hire the people with the right expertise in order to be able to do everything on their own, deploying the smart contract, minting the NFT, distributing the NFT, and everything else. Configuring the servers on which you are going to store the digital files, metadata, and everything. The second option is open marketplaces. This is probably the most adopted option in order to issue and trade NFT today, of course. But here you are facing some challenges as well. So for example, most of these open marketplaces, they manage and they control the servers on which your digital files and the metadatas are registered. So there is a big risk here. Most of the time, the NFTs, so the smart contracts of the NFTs are not public, they are not transparent. So on your own, as a creator, you cannot verify them, you cannot audit them, and basically you are minting and you are managing your NFTs on a smart contract that is a black box for you. And maybe as an NFT collector, you have experienced some bad NFT drops and some bad NFT distribution mechanism. A few weeks ago, the Seven released a fancy NFT collection, and more than 26K transactions failed at the minting process. So when people were trying to purchase the NFTs. And this failed transaction resulted in 4 million fees that has been paid by the end user for transactions that has failed at the end. So this is a very bad user experience, and this is something that we should prevent when we distribute the NFT to the end users. So this is why there are players like Ledger, like ConsenSys, who are currently building the tools and infrastructure in order to streamline and secure the entire NFT journey from issuance by the collector and creators to the custody by the end user, to the collectors. And for example, what we are trying to build at ConsenSys is a platform that enables the organization or the creators to manage, of course, their NFT and their cryptocurrency in the safe way. So they can choose between non-custodial, self-custodial, HSM, and external custodians solutions at the minting process, but also to collect the payments. Of course, the blockchain network is really important. I was explaining at the beginning of the presentation that currently most of the activities happening on the Ethereum mainnet, but for some environmental and for some economical reasons, it's not necessarily the best choice to go on the mainnet. So this is why we are seeing the emergence of layer 2s or sidechain for NFTs, such as Polygon, such as Palm. So at ConsenSys, we built a few months ago Palm, which is an NFT, which is a sidechain basically dedicated to NFT, which is quite popular in the art industry and in the entertainment industry. But we are also supporting Polygon, which is also a sidechain very popular in the NFT for gaming use cases, for example. If we look at the metadata, one best practices, of course, will be to enable the creators, the organization, either to come with their own cloud solutions or to leverage decentralized storage such as IPFS or Arweave. We also, of course, use smart contract and token standards that are interoperable, such as ERC 721, ERC 1155. And of course, these smart contracts are audited, they are transparent, they are open. And as a creator, as an organization, we enable you also to import your smart contract within our smart contract library so that you can interact with specific smart contract coming if you have specific rules that you want to manage on-chain. If we look at the distribution, we also enable you to configure specific drop mechanism. We also enable you to distribute your NFT directly without listing them on any storefront and marketplaces, to manage whitelist and other specific drop mechanism features. And finally, at the end, of course, this is probably the most important part of the journey for most of you who are NFT collector. Here, what we try to do is to give you all the flexibility of all the possibility in terms of NFT custody. So whether you are a non-crypto guy and you don't want to manage your wallet, of course you have a non-custodial account on the platform, but we'll encourage you to go on the self-custodial way, coming with your own blockchain wallet. And our solution is currently in the process of integrating and supporting other solutions such as SSM and external custodians that will secure your NFT custody. So this point is really important because we are definitely facing a big challenge with the Ethereum mainnet, and this is why today we are encouraging our clients and we are encouraging the ecosystem not to mint NFTs on the mainnet for two main reasons, of course: environmental impact and cost. And this is why we are encouraging creators and organizations to consider layer 2 solutions such as the one I mentioned, Polygon, Palm, and others that are good fits for NFT use cases. So this is it for today. Don't hesitate if you have any questions. Yeah.
Not so questions like to add something, because NFT is not only something that we can use inside of the game or some digital art. It's also can be like a program inside of the what is NFT. We can put any open code inside, and this NFT that you have, it began to work for you. You own NFT, and this NFT stake for you some coins, after collect for you reward, after send it with the liquid staking to the FI, after collect it and bring back. And it's just like a cash button. You have an NFT, and inside of it, the perfect code, open code that make all your financial actions. And you don't need to have nothing, just to own NFT. And this will be something like an economical liberation, and it's not about the art.
Yeah, I totally agree with you and with your vision. So the three categories I presented, digital collectibles, games assets, and virtual accessories, are today, let's say, the mainstream categories. But if we look further, we can build plenty of amazing use cases that may leverage NFTs as well, that are not so mainstream for the moment, but that could become very good use cases, to my opinion, as well. Yeah. Yesterday, I was talking, for example, about subscription-based model, leveraging NFTs in order to better manage the subscriptions that you may have with some provider, and these kind of use cases are very relevant, to my opinion. Any other question? Yeah.
Can you say more about that use case and how it would actually work?
Which one? So it was not it's not a use case on which I personally worked. It was a use case described yesterday by someone from Unlock. And if I remember well, there will be a presentation about this use case either today or tomorrow. I don't know if someone from Unlock is here in the room. But if you look at the program, you will find the slot. And the use case basically was about, instead of paying for example, a streaming service subscription, as you do currently, you purchase an NFT that allows you to access the streaming service using the NFT. So you authenticate yourself on the platform using your NFT. But as the subscription is represented by an NFT, you are able to transfer this NFT. So for example, if you go on vacation and if you don't want to use this service during your vacation, you can just forward the token, and only forward the token, not forward the ownership of the token. So the person that will receive the token will not own the NFT, but will be able to benefit from the utility of the NFT. And in that case, the utility of the NFT was to be able to connect to this streaming service and to see the contents provided by this streaming service. Yeah. Yes?
Can you talk a little bit more about Palm?
Yeah, so Palm is a network. It's an EVM-based network. So EVM means Ethereum Virtual Machine. So basically, it's compatible with Ethereum, and it's a network that has been built by Consensus and other entertainment companies and artists in order to face the two main challenges that we have today on the Ethereum mainnet with NFTs, which are on the one hand, of course, the transaction cost, and on the other hand, the impact, the environmental impact of the Ethereum mainnet. And Palm is a sidechain, on which artists such as Damien Hirst or JR, a French photographer, are issuing NFTs, and you can go. So I hope it answers your question, but it's just a sidechain on which there are a lot of NFT activities. There are a lot of NFTs living on it. And today, Palm is compatible with the main wallet. So, for example, if you have a MetaMask wallet, you can use this wallet to purchase your NFT on the Palm network. You can bridge them using MetaMask with other networks if you want to go back to the mainnet and stuff like that. Yeah. It's compatible with open NFT marketplaces. On Palm? So I know there is Starkware, and Starkware so it's a roll-up, Starkware, and I know that, for example, Starkware is a protocol that is used by Sorare, so the football NFT company. And this is the only mainstream use case I know from a company using a roll-up mechanism in order to manage NFTs. Polygon and Palm so far, they don't use rollup to manage NFTs. They are, let's say, traditional sidechains. They have rollup in their roadmap, but the rollup are not ready yet. Yeah.
What are the competitors to Palm, just to help us better understand what a sidechain is?
So Palm is both a sidechain, so a network, a layer, but it's also an NFT studio. So they also have the creative resources that are necessary to create a fancy NFT drop. So they may have some competitor on the creative part, but their main competitor are the other sidechains such as Polygon and so on. So. Other question? Okay, in that case, thank you very much. Have a nice day.